Dr. Maya Patel had always been the curious type. Even as a child, she would spend hours watching people, trying to figure out why they did the things they did. Now, at 32, she had turned that curiosity into a career. She was a cultural anthropologist, which basically meant she studied how different groups of people lived, loved, and celebrated life. For the past 5 years, Maya had been fascinated by wedding traditions in Southeast Asia. She had traveled to remote villages, sat through countless ceremonies, and filled notebook after notebook with observations about how different communities celebrated marriage. Her research had taken her to places most tourists never saw, and she loved every minute of it. Maya was sitting in her small university office one rainy Tuesday morning when her phone rang. The caller was Professor Thant, an elderly man she had met during her first research trip to Myanmar. He had been incredibly helpful over the years, introducing her to village elders and helping her understand local customs. "Maya, my dear," Professor Thant's voice crackled through the phone. "I have incredible news for you, something that happens maybe once in a lifetime." Maya put down her coffee and grabbed a pen. Professor Thant never called unless it was something important. "There are 2 villages in the northern mountains," he continued, his voice filled with excitement. "They have been enemies for many, many years, fighting over water, over land, over old grudges that go back generations. But now, finally, they want to make peace." Maya nodded, though he couldn't see her. She had heard about these kinds of conflicts before. Mountain communities often had complex relationships with their neighbors. "They are planning a sacred ceremony," Professor Thant explained. "A traditional peace treaty that will end the fighting forever. And Maya, they want you there to witness it and write about it. This is a huge honor. These ceremonies are very rare, very special." Maya's heart started beating faster. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been dreaming about. A chance to document something truly historic, something that would make her research stand out from all the other scholars in her field. "When?" she asked, already mentally packing her bags. "Next month. You would need to travel to the village and stay for about a week. The ceremony preparations take several days, and the actual peace signing is quite elaborate. They specifically asked for someone who understands their customs, someone who has studied their way of life." Maya felt a thrill of excitement run through her. She had published several papers about conflict resolution in traditional societies. Maybe her work had reached these communities somehow. "Professor Thant, this is amazing. Yes, absolutely yes. I'll start making arrangements right away." "Wonderful." Professor Thant sounded genuinely pleased. "I will send you all the details. Oh, and Maya, you should bring your best clothes. This is a very important ceremony and they will want to honor you properly." After hanging up, Maya sat back in her chair and smiled. This was why she had chosen this career. These moments when everything aligned perfectly, when years of study led to incredible opportunities. She spent the next few weeks preparing obsessively. She reviewed all her notes about peace ceremonies and conflict resolution. She practiced her basic phrases in the local language, wanting to show respect for the communities she would be visiting. She packed her camera, extra notebooks, recording, equipment, and yes, her nicest professional clothes. Maya also did something she rarely did. She called her parents to tell them about the trip. "Just be careful, Beta," her mother said, using the affectionate term she had called Maya since childhood. "These remote places can be dangerous." "Mom, I've been doing this for years," Maya replied. "Besides, I'm going to a peace ceremony. What's dangerous about that?" Her father, always practical, asked about her research funding and whether the university was supporting the trip. Maya assured him that everything was covered and that this could be a career-changing opportunity. The journey to the village was exactly what Maya expected, long and bumpy. First, a flight to the nearest city, then a 6-hour jeep ride through winding mountain roads, and finally a 3-hour hike on foot through dense forest trails. But as they got closer to the village, Maya noticed something that surprised her. The path was decorated, not just clean, but actually decorated with flowers and colorful cloth tied to trees. Her guide, a young man named Ko Win, seemed unusually excited about something. "Big celebration," he kept saying, grinning widely. "Very big celebration." You are very special guest." Maya assumed this was just the standard hospitality she had experienced in rural communities before. People were often excited to have visitors, especially foreign researchers who showed genuine interest in their culture. But when they finally reached the village, Maya realized this was different. Much different. The entire community had turned out to greet her. Not just a few curious children and elders, but literally everyone. People were wearing their finest traditional clothes, the kind usually reserved for major festivals or religious ceremonies. The women had flowers in their hair, and the men were dressed in elaborate woven shirts Maya had only seen in the most important celebrations. As she walked into the village center, people began throwing flower petals in the air. Children ran alongside her, laughing and chattering in the local dialect. Elder women approached her with warm smiles, placing garlands of fresh flowers around her neck. "Ko-Win," Maya whispered to her guide. "Is all this normal for documenting a peace treaty?" Ko-Win's smile became even wider, if that was possible. "You are guest of honor," he said. "Very, very special guest." Maya felt a small flutter of confusion in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. She was here to observe and document, not to question their generous hospitality. If they wanted to treat her research visit as a special occasion, she would graciously accept their kindness and make sure to write about their incredible welcoming traditions. The village elder, a dignified woman who appeared to be in her 70s, approached Maya with what could only be described as a knowing smile. She spoke rapidly in the local language, gesturing toward Maya with obvious approval. "What is she saying?" Maya asked. Ko-Win's translation seemed oddly vague. "She says you are perfect, everything they hoped for. The ceremony will be beautiful." Maya nodded and smiled, though something about the situation was starting to feel unusual. The decorations, the excitement, the way people kept looking at her and whispering among themselves. It all seemed like more than just enthusiasm for a peace treaty documentation. But she was tired from the long journey, and the villagers were being incredibly kind. She decided to settle in, rest, and start her observations fresh the next morning. After all, she had a whole week to figure out the details of their peace ceremony. She had no idea that she was about to become the most surprised anthropologist in academic history. Maya woke up the next morning to the sound of drums. Not angry war drums, but rhythmic celebratory beats that seemed to pulse through the entire village. She stretched and looked out the window of the small guest house where she was staying. What she saw made her rub her eyes and look again. The village had been completely transformed overnight. Everywhere she looked, there were decorations. But these weren't just any decorations. They were symbols Maya recognized from her years of research. Lotus flowers, which in many Asian cultures represented fertility and new beginnings. Red and gold banners that she knew were associated with good luck and prosperity. Most puzzling of all, there were pairs of doves carved from wood hanging from every tree. Maya had studied enough wedding ceremonies to know what she was looking at, but it didn't make sense. This was supposed to be a peace treaty, not a celebration of marriage. She got dressed quickly and grabbed her notebook. Maybe these were just general celebration symbols and she was reading too much into it. After all, peace was something worth celebrating with all the joy usually reserved for weddings. When Maya stepped outside, she was immediately surrounded by a group of village women. They were all talking at once, their voices filled with excitement. Ko-Win appeared at her side, grinning that same wide grin from yesterday. "Ladies want to know if you slept well," he translated. "They say today is a very important day for preparation." "Preparation for the peace treaty?" Maya asked. Ko-Win nodded, but Maya noticed he didn't quite meet her eyes when he answered. "Yes, preparation, very important preparation." The women led Maya to the center of the village, where tables had been set up with the most elaborate breakfast she had ever seen. There were fruits she didn't recognize, rice dishes that smelled incredible, and what looked like traditional sweets. But what caught her attention were the gifts. Piled on a separate table were dozens of beautifully wrapped packages, silk scarves, jewelry, carved wooden boxes, and what appeared to be very expensive traditional clothing. Maya had seen similar displays before, but only at Ko-Win, she said carefully. "What are these gifts for?" Gifts for honored guest, he replied. Traditional gifts for special ceremony. Maya felt that flutter of confusion in her stomach again, but stronger this time. She had attended peace ceremonies before. They usually involved simple offerings, maybe some food, incense, or flowers. This looked more like the gift table at a major celebration. As she ate breakfast, Maya watched the village activity with growing puzzlement. Young men from what she assumed were both formerly feuding villages were gathered in groups, but they weren't discussing peace negotiations. Instead, they seemed to be preparing for some kind of performance. She watched as one group practiced what was clearly a traditional dance. But Maya had seen enough cultural performances to recognize different types of dances, and this wasn't a warrior dance or a peace dance. The movements were graceful, almost romantic. The dancers kept glancing in her direction and whispering among themselves. "Ko-Win," Maya said, pulling out her notebook. "Can you ask some of the elders about the history of this peace treaty? I'd like to understand what caused the original conflict." Ko-Win spoke to several older villagers, but their responses seemed oddly vague. Instead of talking about land disputes or water rights, they kept mentioning something about bringing the communities together and joining two into one. Maya wrote everything down, but she was starting to feel like she was missing something important. The language barrier was more challenging than she had expected, and everyone seemed to be speaking in metaphors. Later that morning, the village elder, Grandmother Kai, approached Maya with another group of women. They were carrying what appeared to be traditional clothing. Not just any traditional clothing, but an incredibly elaborate outfit that looked like it had taken months to make. Through Ko-Win's translation, Grandmother Ki explained that Maya needed to wear this outfit for the ceremony. Maya examined the clothing carefully. It was beautiful. Layers of silk in deep reds and golds with intricate embroidery that must have taken skilled artisans countless hours to complete. But Maya's trained eye recognized something troubling. This wasn't ceremonial clothing for a witness or a guest. Based on the style, the colors, and especially the symbolic patterns in the embroidery, this was ceremonial clothing for a participant. A very specific type of participant. "Ko-Win," Maya said slowly. "What exactly is my role supposed to be in this ceremony?" Ko-Win seemed to struggle with the translation. He spoke rapidly with Grandmother Ki, who responded with animated gestures and what sounded like detailed explanations. "She says you are the most important person," Ko-Win finally said. "The ceremony cannot happen without you. You are the one who makes peace possible." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "But I'm just here to observe and document. I'm a researcher." More rapid conversation between Ko-Win and the grandmother. Then Ko-Win turned back to Maya with an expression that was hard to read. "Grandmother Ki says your research shows you understand our ways. You have studied our customs for many years. You know what this ceremony means." "What ceremony means?" Maya repeated. "Ko-Win, what exactly is this ceremony?" But before Ko-Win could answer, a commotion erupted from across the village. Maya turned to see two groups of young men approaching each other. For a moment, she worried that the old conflicts were flaring up again. But instead of fighting, the two groups began what appeared to be a friendly competition. They were showing off, demonstrating their strength, their skills, their talents. One group performed acrobatic feats while the other group displayed beautiful handmade crafts. It was like watching two teams trying to impress someone. Maya suddenly realized they were all looking at her while they performed. "Ko-Win," she said, her voice getting tighter. "Why are they all looking at me?" Ko-Win's smile became almost apologetic. "They want to show they are worthy." "Worthy of what?" "Worthy of honor of ceremony." Maya felt like she was trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Every answer just led to more questions. The decorations, the gifts, the elaborate clothing, the competitive displays from the young men. Individually, they might mean nothing. But together, they were forming a picture that Maya really didn't want to see clearly. She decided to try a different approach. "Ko-Win in your language, what is the word for the ceremony happening tomorrow?" Ko-Win hesitated for a long moment. Then he said a word in the local dialect. Maya felt her blood turn cold. She knew that word. She had heard it dozens of times. During her research, written it in her notebooks, discussed it in her academic papers. It wasn't the word for peace treaty. It was the word for wedding. Maya stared at Kowin, hoping she had misunderstood. Maybe her knowledge of the local language wasn't as good as she thought. Maybe that word had multiple meanings. Maybe she was just panicking over nothing. Kowin, she said carefully. Can you say that word again, slowly? He repeated it, and Maya's heart sank. There was no mistake. She knew that word as well as she knew her own name. She had written entire chapters about ceremonies involving that exact word. I need to sit down, Maya said, feeling suddenly dizzy. Kowin looked concerned and quickly brought her a chair. Are you sick? Should I get grandmother? No, Maya said quickly. I just need a minute to think. But thinking was exactly what she didn't want to do, because the more she thought about it, the more everything made terrible sense. The flowers, the decorations, the elaborate gifts, the young men showing off, the special ceremonial clothes. It was all exactly what she would expect to see at a traditional village wedding. Maya tried to stay calm. Maybe there was still some explanation that didn't involve her being the center of attention at someone else's wedding ceremony. Maybe they wanted her to document a wedding that was part of the peace treaty. Maybe two people from the feuding villages were getting married to seal the peace, and she was supposed to write about it. That had to be it. She was overthinking this whole situation. Just then, Grandmother Kai approached with a woman Maya hadn't met before. This new woman was younger, maybe in her 40s, and she had the confident air of someone used to being listened to. Kowin immediately became more formal when he saw her. This is Aunt Zin, Kowin explained. She speaks some English. She came from town to help with translation. Maya felt a wave of relief. Finally, someone who could help clear up this confusion. Aunt Zin smiled warmly at Maya and sat down beside her. Hello, dear, she said in accented but clear English. I'm very happy to meet you. We have heard so much about your work. Thank you, Maya replied. I'm honored to be here to document the peace ceremony, though I have to admit, I'm a bit confused about some of the details. Aunt Zin's smile became even warmer. Oh dear girl, there is no confusion. Let me explain everything clearly. Maya pulled out her notebook, ready to finally get some straight answers. The peace between our villages is very real, Aunt Zin began. We have been fighting for too long over silly things. Water rights, land, boundaries, old insults. But now we are tired of fighting. We want peace. That's wonderful, Maya said, writing quickly. And the ceremony tomorrow will make this peace official? Yes, exactly. But Maya, dear, you must understand. In our culture, the strongest peace is not just words on paper. The strongest peace comes when two communities become one family. Maya nodded, still writing. So someone from each village is getting married? Aunt Zin looked puzzled. Getting married? Yes, of course someone is getting married. You are getting married. Maya's pen stopped moving. I'm sorry, what? You are getting married, Aunt Zin repeated, as if explaining something obvious to a child. Tomorrow, at the ceremony. This is how we make peace, through marriage that joins the communities, together. Maya felt like the world had suddenly tilted sideways. But I'm not getting married. I'm here to observe and document. I'm a researcher. Aunt Zin laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. Oh, Maya, of course you are here to get married. Why else would you come? To document the peace treaty, Maya said weakly. But, dear, Aunt Zin said patiently, your marriage is the peace treaty. You will marry, and through your marriage our villages will become connected. This is the traditional way. Maya's notebook fell to the ground. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I'm not here to get married. I don't even know anyone in your villages. I've never met any of these people before yesterday. Aunt Zin looked genuinely confused now. But you have studied our marriage customs for years. Professor Thant told us about all your research. He showed us your papers about wedding ceremonies and how they bring communities together. Why would you study these things if you were not looking for a husband? Maya felt like she was trapped in the world's most awkward nightmare. That's my job. I study cultures. I study weddings because they're interesting, not because I want to have one. But you are not married, Aunt Zin pointed out logically. You are the right age. You understand our ways. You speak our language. You have spent years learning about our marriage traditions. And you came here when we invited you. How is this not you looking for a husband? When Aunt Zin put it like that, Maya could almost see their point. From their perspective, her behavior probably did look like someone who was husband shopping. But that didn't make this situation any less impossible. Who exactly am I supposed to marry? Maya asked, dreading the answer. Aunt Zin brightened up, again. Oh, this is the beautiful part. Both villages have chosen their finest young men to compete for your hand. We have Thura from the mountain village. He is very strong, and his family has many goats. And we have Zaw from the river village. He is clever and knows how to fix machines. They have both been preparing for weeks to impress you. Maya remembered the competitive displays she had witnessed that morning. Those young men hadn't been showing off randomly. They had been auditioning to be her husband. There are others too, Aunt Zin continued enthusiastically. Lin is an excellent hunter, and Kaya makes beautiful wood carvings. Oh, and Mayo can play 5 different musical instruments. You have many wonderful choices. Maya felt like she was going to faint. Aunt Zin, I can't marry any of these people. I barely know them. I have a life back home. I have a job, a career. I can't just stay here and become someone's wife. Aunt Zin looked at her with sympathy. I understand you are nervous, dear. All brides are nervous. But think about it. What do you have back home that is better than this? You said yourself you are not married. You clearly love our culture, or you would not have spent so many years studying it. Here, you would be respected, cherished, and you could continue your research as an insider instead of an outsider. Plus, your marriage would bring peace between communities that have fought for generations. Is this not a good thing? Maya had to admit that when Aunt Zin explained it that way, it almost sounded reasonable. Almost. But I don't love any of them, Maya protested. Love grows, Aunt Zin said, with the confidence of someone who had seen many arranged marriages work out well. They are all good men from good families. You will learn to care for whichever one you choose, and he will learn to care for you. This is how it has always been done. Maya looked around the village where preparations for tomorrow's ceremony were continuing at full speed. Everyone looked so happy, so excited. The thought of disappointing all these people, of potentially reigniting a conflict between communities that had finally found a path to peace, made her feel sick. But the thought of actually going through with this made her feel even sicker. Maya spent the rest of the day trying to figure out how to escape this impossible situation. She had never felt so trapped in her entire life. Every solution she could think of seemed to lead to disaster. She tried explaining to Aunt Zin about her university job, her research commitments, her life back home. But every explanation just made the villagers more convinced that she was perfect for their community. You work at university? Aunt Zin said excitedly. This is wonderful. You can teach our children. We have been wanting someone to help with education. When Maya mentioned her research, Grandmother Kai clapped her hands together with joy. She can write about our traditions from the inside. No more outsiders misunderstanding our ways. Maya even tried mentioning her apartment, her cat, her plants, that needed watering. The villagers had practical solutions for everything. We will send people to bring your belongings, Aunt Zin offered. And cats are very welcome here. We have many mice. The more Maya talked, the more excited everyone became about having her stay permanently. It was like trying to dig herself out of a hole, only to discover that every shovel of dirt was making the hole deeper. Meanwhile, the competition between her potential husbands was getting more intense by the hour. Maya watched in fascination and horror as the young men tried to outdo each other in increasingly creative ways. Thura, the strong one from the mountain village, had started bringing her gifts every hour. First it was wildflowers, then it was a beautifully carved wooden box, then it was a baby goat that he claimed was the cutest in his family's herd. The goat was indeed adorable, which somehow made everything worse. Zaw, the clever one from the river village, had taken a different approach. He had somehow figured out that Maya was interested in local history, so he began telling her fascinating stories about the area that she had never heard before. Stories about ancient festivals, forgotten traditions, and local legends that would be incredible additions to her research. Maya found herself genuinely interested in what he was saying, which made her feel like she was betraying herself. Lin, the hunter, kept bringing her food. But not just any food. He was preparing elaborate meals designed to show off his skills as a provider. Maya had to admit that everything was delicious, and she caught herself wondering if he had learned these recipes from his mother or figured them out on his own. Kaya, the woodcarver, was creating what appeared to be a detailed sculpture of Maya herself. She had watched him working on it throughout the day, and she was amazed by his artistic ability. The sculpture was so lifelike that it was almost unsettling. Maya wondered how he had managed to capture her likeness so perfectly after knowing her for only 2 days. And Mayo, the musician, had written what sounded like an entire song about her. He performed it that evening after dinner, and Maya was shocked to realize that the lyrics were actually quite beautiful. They described her as the woman who travels far to understand the hearts of others, and the bridge between worlds who brings knowledge and peace. Maya felt tears in her eyes before she remembered that she was supposed to be finding a way out of this situation, not getting emotionally invested in it. The worst part was that all 5 men were genuinely nice people. They weren't just trying to impress her, they were being kind, respectful, and thoughtful. Maya had dated plenty of men back home who had put in far less effort to get to know her or make her feel special. As the evening wore on, Maya realized that the villagers had planned activities specifically designed to help her get to know each potential husband better. It was like the world's most elaborate speed dating event, except the stakes were international peace, and she had never agreed to participate. She found herself in a long conversation with Zaw about sustainable farming techniques. His ideas were actually quite innovative, and Maya caught herself thinking that he would probably be successful in any culture, not just his own. Later, Thura showed her around the mountain village's terraced gardens, explaining how his community had developed their irrigation system over generations. Maya was impressed by the engineering and found herself asking genuine questions about the technical details. Kaya shyly showed her more of his artwork, including pieces that demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of proportion and design that Maya hadn't expected to find in such a remote location. Lin prepared a meal for her using only ingredients he had gathered himself that day, explaining the nutritional and medicinal properties of each plant. Maya realized she was learning things that no textbook could teach her, and when Mio played music later that evening, Maya found herself relaxing for the first time since she had arrived. The melodies were beautiful, complex, and unlike anything she had heard before. By the time she went to bed, Maya was more confused than ever. She had come to the village expecting to observe a simple peace ceremony. Instead, she had found herself in the middle of an elaborate courtship ritual with 5 men who were all, in their own ways, remarkable people. Maya lay in her small bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. The ceremony was scheduled for the next morning. The entire village was depending on her. 2 communities had put aside generations of conflict because they believed her marriage would seal their peace. But she couldn't actually go through with it, could she? The idea was absolutely ridiculous. She had a life, a career, responsibilities. She couldn't just abandon everything to marry a stranger in a remote mountain village, no matter how nice he might be. On the other hand, Maya had never felt so appreciated or valued. Back home, she was just another academic struggling to get tenure, competing with dozens of other researchers for limited resources and recognition. Here, she was seen as someone special, someone whose presence could change the course of history for entire communities. Maya thought about her life back home, her small apartment, her demanding job, her non-existent social life. She worked constantly, had few close friends, and hadn't been on a decent date in over a year. Her research was important to her, but sometimes she wondered if anyone besides other academics actually cared about her work. Here, her knowledge was valued. Her presence was celebrated. She was surrounded by people who seemed genuinely happy to have her around. and the men who wanted to marry her were putting in more effort to win her affection than anyone had ever done before. Maya rolled over and tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing. Tomorrow morning, she would have to make a choice that would affect not just her own life but the lives of everyone in both villages. She just wished she knew what the right choice was.